Hi everyone, Adrian Funeral, Global Leadership Platform. It's great to be with you for our Global Leadership Conversations series. And this is the first one, of course. I've got with me an interesting man who's been in the leadership space, development, teamwork for many years. And his name is Bruce Msimanga, Organizational Development Consultant of DLA Consulting. And it's his business. We will have some interesting views for our 3 questions where we are probing the global leadership crisis. We have pockets of excellence. How do we deal with this crisis? What are the qualities we need to develop as leaders if we're going to somehow solve this crisis? So with me, Bruce Msimanga. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you, Adrian. It's really great to be on your show. And I look forward to sharing some ideas, and things that I believe to be true about leadership, especially relating to the 3 questions that you mentioned.
Thank you, Bruce. Bruce, our first question. How would you describe or define the global leadership crisis? What are we dealing with here?
Adrian, my focus is organizations. What I'm really passionate is businesses. And all over the world, we see, over 1 million new businesses start up each year. And 40% of those new businesses fail in the first year. Only 12% survive the first 5 years. And about 2 to 3% survive, the first 10 years. So it's really tough for businesses to survive in the marketplace all over the world. It doesn't matter who you are, and there are many factors that lead to business failure. Sometimes businesses don't understand their markets that they're playing in. They don't understand what their customers need. Sometimes they're undercapitalized and they lack a strategy. But for me, what I really believe to be true is that leadership is the most important factor in achieving and sustaining long-term organizational success, because leaders are responsible for creating a vision for the company. Leaders are responsible for making sure there's a clear strategy, that they're working towards. Leaders are responsible for making sure that the infrastructure, the systems are put in place to enable the organization to succeed. So that's why I really believe that we have a problem in leadership, with a crisis for leadership, because that's with all the businesses that are not able to sustain, to make it in the marketplace. At the heart of business failure is a lack of leadership. It's a lack of leadership. So that's the crisis that I see.
It is a crisis, and the big question then is, our first one: what is the most important quality or attribute we need to develop, awaken, or improve in leaders if we are going to turn around this global crisis of failing businesses because of weak or inexperienced or toxic leadership? What would you say is that top attribute that our leadership development initiatives need to get out of leaders?
Adrian, at the heart of leadership, I believe at the heart of leadership is the ability, first and foremost, to have a clear vision, a clear and compelling vision, right? And secondly, with a clear and compelling vision, leaders need to be able to translate that vision into reality. They need to be able to wake up every day and do things and make decisions and be courageous and do things that are necessary to make that vision to become a reality. And thirdly, what leaders need to be able to do is to rally people behind them to support that vision, to help them make that vision come to pass. But what I see and what I think is a need in leaders is understanding the 5 leadership roles, because all leadership behavior can be grouped into buckets, if I can call it, 5 different buckets. We talk about the technician role, we talk about being a manager, we talk about being an architect, we talk about being a trailblazer, and we talk about being a coach. And that's the ability that I think or the awareness that I think most leaders need to be aware of, to be aware that whatever they do on a day-to-day basis falls into one of those 5 buckets. Whether it's either they are being a technician, and most of the times you find that, especially in business, people are promoted because they were good at a task or they were good at a certain job, and then without training or development in terms of what it takes to be a leader, they are promoted into these positions, and they have these titles and they have these positions, but they are not able to do what leaders need to do. So they're still continuing to micromanage or to be technicians and hope that they are measured based on their ability to do their job. But what they don't understand is that their role has changed completely. The minute you become a manager or a supervisor, it's no longer about you or what you can do. It's about your ability to get things done through other people. And that's what I've seen in my experience with a lot of managers and a lot of leaders, that they have these titles, they have these positions, but it's like they're still competing with their subordinates, in terms of getting the job done, rather than playing the coaching role, for example, and teaching people how the job is done, or mentoring people, or developing people, or making sure that they have the resources they need, or playing the architectural role, working on the systems. If you know Edward Deming Jr., who came up with the concept of working on the business, not in the business, because most of the times leaders are caught up in the action, so to speak, that they lose that perspective, that big picture perspective, to really view their organization or the institution that they lead from a holistic point of view, or to have that big picture view. So I think a lot of leaders, especially the guys that I work with on a personal level, I try and get them to understand that even though you're in the action, you can still act as if you're on the balcony in terms of your mindset. You can still view your team and ask yourself, what resources do they need, or are these systems enabling them to do their job? Is the structure okay? Do we understand our core processes? And in addition to that, also being a trailblazer, looking into the future, what's coming around the corner, what can we predict from our environment? Because a lot of leaders seem to be detached from their environment. They are making all these decisions, and they're sitting in mahogany, behind their mahogany desks, and they're making decisions that affect the organization, but they're not in touch with the customers. They're not in touch with what's really happening on the ground. So I think when leaders take a step back, in their mind, even though they're still doing their day-to-day jobs, but in their mind, if they maintain that perspective that, listen, this is a big picture. There is a big picture that we're working towards. This is an organization. We still need to have a vision for the future. We're working towards a mission. We need to have systems that help us to get there. We need to have a strategy that helps us to get there, and people need to be coached and mentored. So you find that in traditional organizations, the emphasis was more on the technical and the managerial role. That's why people got promoted, because they were good technicians. And then when they got promoted, all they had to do was give instructions, tell people what to do, write reports, and all those kind of things. But now the world has changed. Organizations are no longer hierarchical, for example. And you find that a lot of managers struggle because they're coming from schools, and they're taught that managers control and they coordinate, and they make sure things done, and they give out instructions. But when they get into the real world, that's not how things work. People want to be empowered. People don't want to be managed. They want to be led. You can lead a horse to drink water, but you can't manage it to drink water. If you want to manage somebody, manage yourself first. And I see that as a gap, that leaders need to make that understanding in their own mind, that I'm now a leader. I'm no longer a technician. I'm no longer supposed to be doing the core technical work. What I need to do is make sure that people get the job done. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, so what I get from you is a couple of very important points, but in essence, you say at the top should be the ability to understand the different roles as a leader. And just recap the roles without detail, just the roles. You said it's the technician, it's the trailblazer. What are those roles?
Yes, so we've got the technician, we've got the manager, we've got the coach, we've got the architect, and the trailblazer. Okay. Now, to give you a bit more detail, the technician is the doer. They tinker on getting things done, so they know how to do the technical work. And then the manager focuses on the status quo, maintaining the status quo, managing things, controlling, coordinating, making sure that work gets done, the flow of work, managing the flow of work. The coach, however, the coach is concerned with people, developing people, making sure that if someone came in through our door and, for example, maybe they came in and all they knew was just to do their job. By the time we get to the end of the year, that person needs to have developed and grown, from where they were when they came into the organization. So that's the coach. The coach makes sure that people develop, people grow, people learn, people are mentored, people are taught the job. And then the architect really looks at the systems, and the processes of getting the work done, to say, can we improve this system? Can we make it better? Can we change the structure of the organization? So they're really looking at the design of the organization to see that, is this helping us get to where we want to go? And then the final role, which is the trailblazer, is really looking into the future. what's coming around the bend? What are our competitors doing? What are our customers likely to change? How can we be prepared for all those that's coming into the future?
Okay. So how do we best develop or awaken or improve leaders' ability to understand these roles? I'm assuming that's what your programs are all about, and many other people, is to teach leaders what these are about. But I can learn about it theoretically, and then when I get out, how do I become a trailblazer? I'm a very managerially mindset person, or I'm really very technical. I'm an actuary, so I'm very technical now. I must lead a bunch of actuaries, or maybe I can become Adrian Gore eventually, But the point is it easy to develop or to awaken these 5 roles in a leader?
I think it is possible. It is possible because if you study time management, you probably understand the concept of the large rocks and the sand. Where if you give participants a bucket filled half filled with sand, and you ask them to add maybe fist-size rocks in there, there's a high chance that they won't fit in all the rocks. But if they change their paradigm, or they change the way they view things, and they start with the large rocks first, they can fit in the sand. And I think in these 5 leadership roles, those are the large rocks. They are the trailblazer, the architecture, and the coach. So most of the times, what I see as a challenge is that most managers say, "I don't have time to coach people," or "I don't have time to work on a system, or "I don't have time to really think about the future." I was trained as a technician, but if they really manage their time wisely and do their best to spend their time on these large rocks, or these 3 roles that I've just introduced here, you find that it becomes easier over time. So that's one way of awakening. It's making that paradigm shift in your mind and accepting that, as much as I'm not trained in this, as much as I'm not good at this, this is what needs to be done. And most of the time you'll find that it will be at the expense of some of these technician roles or these managerial roles. So there are trade-offs in everything. So I think if once as a leader, when you are comfortable with those trade-offs, then you can see that, okay, these are the important roles. Let me get this done first. Then I can fit in everything else into my schedule.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. And I can see that you've done a lot of this. Thank you so much for getting your voice out there, Bruce. The ability to understand those 5 roles and changing your paradigm, realizing that if you focus on those roles, then the other things will follow and you'll fit more into your daily schedule. That's Bruce Msimanga, Organizational Development Consultant, owner of DLA Consulting. We appreciate your time, getting your voice out there, as I said, and getting us to think about the need for these important roles in somehow solving the global leadership crisis. Thank you for your time, Bruce. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Adrian. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Before you go, just very quickly, we ask everyone to tell us something interesting about the city where they live and why people should visit it. And that way we understand the geographical nature of this global leadership conversation. You're in Johannesburg, aren't you?
I am in Johannesburg.
We have other people from Johannesburg, of course, but what do you find interesting about Johannesburg?
What I love about Johannesburg is that, for me, this feels like the New York of Africa. It's so diverse. We've got people from all walks of life. You've got people from Nigeria, you've got people from Malawi, you've got people from the US, you've got people from all over the world who are meeting in this city, and we're all living together. And for me, that's very fascinating because there's so much to learn from the diversity that we have in Johannesburg, and also it makes it possible. Dreams are achievable, I believe, in Johannesburg. I think there's no place in Africa where you can really get things done if you're someone who can get things done. If you have passion, if you have a dream, and you are willing to work, I think Johannesburg offers you equal opportunity.
Thank you so much, Bruce Msimanga, DLA Consulting. We appreciate your time.
Cheers, Adrian.